Stuart, it's a pleasure to be here with you today.
Oh.
I actually just wanted to start out real quickly, wish all the mothers out there happy Mother's Day, even in the UK.
Oh.
Because this is Mother's Day, even though by the time you see this, it's well past, but I just wanted to throw out.
Oh, well, thank you very much. Now
Particularly to my mother, Patricia Thayer. She lives up in Oregon, and she's 89 years old. And,
wow.
We love her very much.
Oh, that's fantastic. Well, normally, if you've seen any of my interviews before, I normally say something like, I'm here with the fabulously talented, friendly, and then I say the person's name. And that's very kind of you to... No, but that was great that you did that, because that was very... In fact, that endorses my point that I am here with the very friendly, very kind, very nice... Mr. Tommy Thayer, not to mention extremely talented. Let's just have one more handshake.
Thank you very much, yeah.
Good to see you. And you, sir, we're at your beautiful home here in California. Your story is a very, very fascinating one. You know, we could talk about this for hours and hours and hours, so we're going to try and sort of compress it into some sort of, time thing. But let's start off with the family. Now, your mum was a classically trained violinist, and I think she was a singer as well, I believe.
Yeah, the family I come from is very musically talented, and that was an advantage for me just growing up, because my mom was a concert violinist all through college. She never was a professional, but she really knew her music, and when we were kids in the morning, she'd wake us up playing classical music on the radio, and so we always had that kind of churning through our veins from the get-go, and show tunes, all the good stuff. And then, of course, I was the fourth kid out of 5 siblings. So my older brothers played Beatles records in the early to mid 60s when I was growing up. So that was very much ingrained, as well as a lot of the great pop music and popular music, of the time, and rock music too in the late 60s and early 70s. So I got a good start on all that.
Yeah. And did you actually study with your mum? Did you learn to read, or was it something?
No, I just kind of... being the fourth kid in our family out of 5, I was kind of the neglected one, and I think that is part of the reason why I kind of ended up reaching out on my own and just being more independent. I took off and did my thing, but the influence was definitely there, but I kind of found my way on my own in terms of music. I started playing saxophone when I was in the 5th grade, and that was kind of my introduction to really playing and studying music, although I picked up the guitar then a few years later when I was 12 or 13 years old. So, and then that took over in a big way.
So was the rock thing a little bit of a rebellion for you?
In a way it was, but everybody, all my peers, all of my friends, my brothers and sisters, everybody's into rock music and that sort of stuff. So it wasn't like it was I wasn't some radical kid going crazy with rock music, but it was very much what everybody's into, and it's really near and dear to my heart in terms of, the makeup of who I am, and when you grow up, and it's like the soundtrack of your life, as they say, and so it's a big part of my growing up for sure.
And I was talking to you earlier, and you strike me, and I hope this doesn't come across as in a bad way, but it almost comes across like you was as much a music fan as you was a musician. You told me you used to take photographs of local bands, and
I did. I was always a huge fan, but I think if you talk to most guys that are, in bands and people, even Paul and Gene, everybody I've talked to, everybody grew up being a huge fan.
But it seems like that humility stayed with you.
Oh, I suppose so. I'm still definitely a fan, and that's kind of what drives it for me a lot of times. And what keeps me excited is that fan kind of perspective on things, because I can meet, like I was saying, Jimmy Page came to our show last time we were in the UK 2 years ago, and he's the guy, he's a god, he's the Led Zeppelin right there, and that was exciting. So I'm always a huge fan, and that is what drives it. And I did take my camera to the concerts when I was a kid. And this, I was explaining, the 30, a real 35 millimeter professional cameras, and this is before the day when they stopped you. You needed a photo pass. You could just walk in and stand in the front row and just shoot bands, and nobody gave a crap. So, I was always into that. And so, in terms of being creative, there was a lot of music and things like photography and other arts I was definitely into growing up. My mom was actually a great artist as well, painter and that sort of thing. So we always had that around us a lot, and I think it really made a big.
So that kind of
difference.
showed you what could be done, what was possible for you. You're sharing the same DNA.
No question. I mean, that gives you a little confidence, and you know that you've got that because your family has that in the genes, so to speak. So, I suppose that does give you a little extra boost, but also, you know that you do have a good eye for things, and you do have a good ear for music, and that always definitely played in my favor.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Now, your resume, it's kind of weird. It seems like you played with a few local bands, formed your own band,
Yes.
Black and Blue,
Yes.
and suddenly they became successful.
Well, it's not quite that
exactly.
simple,
Give us, fill us in on the real deal with that.
Well, when I was in junior high, I had some friends that had some guitars, and they were messing around at school. And these weren't even good. These are, Japanese. This kid had a Pan SG, and that was kind of a popular cheap model. And anyway, these guys, had these guitars. And I just thought that was so cool. One of the things that drew me to the electric guitar was how cool it looked.
Right.
Just the design of the guitar, and guys when they, have them and they're playing them, it looked so cool. And I'd see that on TV or magazines. I thought that's for me, and that's what I want to do. I mean, that was really a big driving force. Just seeing pictures and looking at album covers, and when you had great artwork and gatefold albums and things like that. But it was the aesthetic that appealed to me in a lot of ways too. Not only the music, but just the way it looked and the attitude of what it represented and everything like that. So these guys had guitars, and I said I want to play guitar now. I was playing a little bit of saxophone, like I said, and we just had a cheap little acoustic guitar at home that had been knocking around, and I messed around with that and learned some basic chords. And then my mom, who was always a great supporter of me musically, particularly, she realized that I loved the guitar, and so she helped me go down to the music store, and we picked out a real electric guitar one day when I was about 13.
Oh, wow.
And
do you remember what that was?
Oh, absolutely. We went across the river. I was in Portland, Oregon. It's where I grew up, actually Beaverton, which is a suburb, and we went across the river to Vancouver, Washington, to a shop called American Music, and they had all these great guitars. They had Gibsons, they had Fenders on the wall, and I was just, my mouth was, open in awe of these great guitars, and of course, I would have loved to have had a Les Paul, because that was really the dream guitar, because all my favorite guitar players mostly played Les Pauls, whether it was Ronnie Montrose or, Jimmy Page, of course, even, Ace from Kiss, and, Davey Johnstone, Steve Marriott, Peter Frampton. They were these guys were all, in my eyes, the best. And so I wish I could have got a Les Paul, but I think it was too expensive for the time, especially for a young kid just starting out. So we settled on a Fender Mustang.
Nice.
And I was just thrilled, because I can't believe I have a Fender.
A real deal.
That's a legitimate, it's a Fender or a Gibson, and I had a Fender, and I just couldn't even believe it. So we bought that guitar. My mom helped me. I remember it costed $135.
Wow.
And I took it home, and that's where I got started.
And do you still have that guitar?
I wish I did. I don't know. I think I traded it at some point to get something else. That was the whole deal back then. What can I trade to get that? Because
I think it still is for a lot of guys. You kind of. So you form your own band, Black and Blue, and
but even before that, there was other bands in garage bands. I mean, I went through the whole thing for years of playing clubs in Portland and or to begin with, just playing in garage bands, and then playing the school dances and covering everything that was popular at the time, the bands that we loved, and even working on a few originals here and there. Here and there, excuse me. But then I had met some guys in Portland, since I was from Beaverton, and we started a band even before Black and Blue. It was a precursor to Black and Blue. The band was called Movie Star. And it was rock and roll, loud guitars, but it had a little bit of a pop edge to it, and we played around Portland clubs, and then sooner or later we got kind of tired of that, because especially Jamie St. James, who was the drummer in that band, and myself, we said we should start a new band, and just make it straight ahead hard rock, because that's really where our heart was, and that's when we started Black and Blue.
Right.
And Jamie moved from drums to the lead singer.
Oh, okay. And so this band actually became pretty successful.
Did. We started in Portland. We played the first year in Portland and knocked around the clubs, but the problem was we were too loud. And that's all the club owners say, you guys are good, but you're just too loud. Can you turn down?
That's actually the line from Back to the Future, I think.
Yeah.
It's exactly.
And we were just, we said, no, we can't turn down. And we were playing some of our own originals by that time too, probably maybe 20% original, but we were playing 80% of, all of our favorite stuff, from Van Halen to Riot to Iron Maiden, Judas Priest, AC/DC, a lot of good stuff. So And then again, we weren't quite playing the right music because they really wanted to hear more top 40 rock stuff in the clubs, and we were, playing all this.
You were just rocking out.
We were playing Wrathchild by Iron Maiden and all this stuff, so that wasn't going to work. So anyway, we finally decided, if we really want to do something seriously here, we need to move to LA because that's where things were really starting to happen on the West Coast, because bands, like Motley Crue was starting to pop, and I think maybe Quiet Riot and a couple others, and of course this is on the heels of the new wave of British heavy metal.
Yeah.
So
people were going to get what you were doing.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And there was a market for it,
Yeah.
and we were a good band, and we had some really good tunes by that time of our own. So we took the trip 100 miles, not 100 miles, 1,000 miles to the south, moved to Hollywood and got started. We met this guy named Garo Toshjan, who was an older Armenian chap, really great guy, and he kind of was like a father to us. And he wasn't even in the music business, but his kids came to see us in the clubs, the Troubadour and the Whiskey, and they said, these guys are great. So somehow we worked out this thing where Garo became our manager. And the reason we liked the idea is because he actually put some money into it. He rented us a house, and we started doing these full-page ads in Band Magazine, which was the local entertainment guide. And within 3 months, we got a major record deal.
Wow.
So things really worked well at that point. And John Kalodner from Geffen Records came down and said, welcome to Geffen Records.
Oh my God,
after
wow.
a show one night at the Troubadour, and we were just like,
Yeah.
I can't believe this must be a dream.
Yeah, yeah. Now, somehow you went from Hollywood to Germany.
Yeah.
Tell us how that happens.
Well, of course, we get with this big record label and big budget for the first record, and we're sitting in John Kalodner's office, Geffen Records, and he says, well, who do you want to produce your first album? And for us, that's like, oh my God, because all you did was, with all your favorite hard rock, heavy metal albums, who's the producer,
Yeah, exactly.
This was Tom Allen did this one, and Mutt Lange did this one. And Dieter Dierks did this one, which was what we kind of keyed on because we loved all those records that Dieter Dierks did, mostly the Scorpions and some of the Accept records. There was a French band called Warning, part of that new wave,
right?
Even though they weren't from the UK, but they had a great record that we loved, and we got to get Dieter Dierks.
Right.
He's going to make us sound like the Scorpions, so
right.
So let's get him. So of course, we hired Dieter Dierks, and we're on our way to Germany to record our first album. And we're by this time we're like, we're going to Germany. It's like I'd never been somewhere so far away,
right.
And we were just like this. We were blown away. We couldn't believe what we were doing. So we went to Germany and recorded our first album.
And how was that experience? Was it everything? Everybody, I'm a musician myself. We all imagine certain things being a certain way, and that's why we make those decisions. Was it everything you wanted it to be?
The funny thing is, when you're a kid, you assume that when there's a certain producer that does these albums, you think that's the whole key to everything.
Yes,
he's going to make you sound great.
Yeah.
You're going to have the best guitar sounds in the world, and the songs are going to be incredible, like the Scorpions.
Right.
So
yeah.
So we get over there, and Dieter was great and everything, but we soon realized that the Scorpions sound like the Scorpions because they're the Scorpions.
Indeed,
and we sound like we do because we're who we are. So I mean that was a reality that hit fast. And thinking back, I just laugh now thinking about that because we were kind of naive in that respect, that we thought that
the responsibility would just be removed to somebody else.
Yeah.
And somehow
we thought we're going to go to Germany, and it was quite expensive budget at the time for doing our first record. And in retrospect, I think back, Dieter did a good job, but I think we should have probably just got somebody nearby that just could, make us, put us down and record us just raw and for what we are, and because it kind of got a little too produced in certain ways, and and when you're a young band, you're trying to figure it out, and you don't know, maybe they're suggesting we do that, we better do it, and instead of sticking more to our guns like we probably should have. So the record turned out good, but it wasn't everything that we wanted it to be. But but it was a big learning. But
that was
experience.
that was the learning curve.
Mm-hmm.
Now, did you know Gene Simmons at this point, because he came in to produce one of your later records, I believe, didn't he?
Two of them, actually.
Two of them, okay.
No, I didn't know the guys in Kiss. I didn't know Gene. We didn't know Paul at the time.
So that connection had not been established at that point.
No, this is 1983, and we recorded. Actually, 1984, we recorded that album, and it came out in August 1984. And the other thing we did that, in retrospect, we kind of screwed around too long, going to Germany, and we spent a lot of time, and the whole process took too long. Meanwhile,
it lost a bit of momentum somewhere.
I think so, because we got signed before Rat and a lot of these other bands like Great White, but they had records out 2 months before ours did, because they just, got in the studio
They
in LA.
recorded them down the street.
Yeah, at the Village Recorder in West LA. So I think that might hurt us a little bit too, because we kind of lost a little momentum and got a little bit behind the curve timing-wise, because everything was happening so fast there in 1984. So anyway, that record came out, and we went on tour and did a couple cool tours. We toured with Aerosmith and a couple other things. It was great. But anyway, so our second record, we decided we better, well, we talked again about producers, and one guy we really liked was Bruce Fairbairn.
Right.
And I remember we were having this meeting with John Clowder, and he said, well, you should really, Bruce is great, but you should really pay attention to the guy that engineers the record. His name's Bob Rock. And we didn't know who he was. And Clowder said, well, you got to have Bob Rock involved. So we said, oh, great. So we did this record up in Vancouver at Little Mountain Studios up there, and Bruce Fairbairn produced it. Made a great record called Without Love. And, it was a more commercial hard rock record, but it was really well produced, really sounded good, and the songs were good. So, that was kind of the next step. And when that came out, we were lucky enough to get on a Kiss tour as the opening act. It was Kiss had just come out with Asylum, and this was fall of 1985. And that's when I met those guys. And we did about 25 dates with Kiss through the United States that year.
And how were they? Did they treat you well? I know it's probably difficult if they didn't, but
I thought they really treated us well. They actually paid attention to us and talked to us and kind of took us under their wing, and they were very supportive and cool about the whole thing. And
because Gene Simmons had helped out Van Halen, and he's got a reputation for being helpful.
He was always interested in getting involved with the young bands. He'd been doing it ever since he first, was one of the first people to see Van Halen, I guess, back in the day. And so Gene was a little more forthright and involved in talking more, because that's just his style. Paul's a little more standoffish and just kind of, a little quieter to begin with. And anyway, so by the time we got to know those guys a little bit more, and Gene, we asked Gene to produce our third and fourth record then for Black and Blue. And so from there we got more involved in an association, particularly him and I, because we did the Black and Blue stuff. And then he asked me to come write with them at one point for the Kiss Hot in the Shade record that they were working on. And it just kind of took off from there.
So you just really developed an organic friendship and business relationship with Gene Simmons. It just kind of happened, didn't seem to be any kind of manufactured thing.
No, not at all. It naturally evolved over the course of several years there. I mean, I started writing with him, and then he had some other projects. There was a Doro Pesch record that he produced, and I was the associate producer, and a bunch of things like that. And then Black and Blue ran its course, and the band kind of split up because it just wasn't, it did well, but not good enough to keep going. So at that point, I was out of a job, and those guys offered me a job to come work for the KISS organization, part-time to begin with. And of course, I jumped at that. That was a great opportunity.
Did it not feel a bit strange? Because if I may say, sometimes when people look at the Tommy Thayer story, they go, oh yeah, this guy was kind of, Gene Simmons' assistant, the next thing he's in KISS. But of course, you had a huge career as a musician.
Oh, sure.
Before that even sort of took place. Was that...
Well, some guys wouldn't be able to do that, I don't think, because, ego-related things would think, I was on the big stage and I'm making big records and now I'm going to go work doing a job doing this. It's like, no, but I never had that problem at all.
And you didn't feel, was it one of those things where you thought, maybe it wouldn't be a bad idea to just...
No. I looked at it as a great opportunity, just to have a job. I needed to earn some money. I had bills to pay and things like that, and it was a great opportunity to have a job working for a band that was a big band, and I knew these guys, and there was all kinds of cool, interesting things to be done, a lot of projects and things, and I thought it was fantastic. And I had no problem, from an ego standpoint or anything like that, completely doing that.
What about guitar playing? Did that become affected in or reduced in any way, or?
Not at all. I still play guitar a bit. I actually was in a couple bands at the time, knocking around LA.
So you still kept your kind of playing career going?
Sure, but you needed to have a legitimate job, and I wasn't Gene's assistant. People that's kind of been a rumor.
I'm not saying that is what happened. I'm just saying that's a bad perception.
Right. Being Gene, yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
What I did was I came in, and the first project was Kisstory, which is the 9-pound coffee table book, and I became the photo editor. So what a great job to look through KISS photos all day long. So I was fortunate, and it turned out really great. And that job evolved over a few years, and pretty soon I was working full time and Then the band did the reunion tour, and I got more involved working on the road with these guys and actually road managing and working behind the scenes with Doc McGee. And there was a point in time where Ace Frehley and Peter Criss got in the band and they needed help, so they asked me to help them get reacquainted with some of their
I watched a thing
parts and things like that.
Yeah, with Ace Frehley, and he was actually very complimentary. He said, "Hey, this guy really helped me out.
It's
taught me back my solos." He said it. He said, "This guy really helped me out." He said, "I don't think I could have done it without him."
It's just something I was happy to do, and it was I was just thrilled to be doing it, and I was happy and getting paid a good wage, and no complaints from me.